Chapter 8 Need an Assistant. I felt Gayla's hand on my shoulder and I turned around to see her gazing at me, her light eyebrows raised. Everyone is staring at you, she whispered, causing me to turn around slowly to see the remaining females from the crowd gaping at me. Shocked that I had made my way up to Alpha Dylan so eagerly and confidently, not caring what Alpha Paul had to say. In their eyes, I must have come across as disrespectful and desperate, but they didn't know that Dylan was my mate. I was praying to myself that nobody heard Dylan's cheeky comment before he walked away, wanting to tell the pack myself when the time was right. I haven't even told my father yet. I watched as the remaining females' dispute emptied the grounds, leaving Gayla and I standing there in the wind, our hair blowing into tangled knots. Let's go back to mine. You can visit Dylan down at the cabin later, suggested Gayla, wrapping her arm around my shoulder, leading me towards our house. I sure hope Alpha Paul doesn't catch me, I laughed. Just tell him you're mates, swagged Gayla, winking at me. Yeah, I'm sure he will be fine with it as long as I don't disturb Dylan, I replied, chewing on my nails. Do you want to watch a movie or something? Asked Gayla. I sighed, shaking my head. I think I'm going to head home if that's okay. Can we do another night? I asked, sheepishly. Gayla nodded, laughing. Yeah, sure, but update me about Dylan though. Let me know if you go and visit him. I nodded, giving my best friend a quick hug before pulling away and making my way back to my house, my head hanging low. I knew it was probably time to tell Jared and my dad that I found my mate. But with Jared feeling so low at the moment, I almost feel guilty throwing my happiness into his face, reminding him of yet another thing he didn't have. I pulled my front door open, sighing to myself as I chambered up the stairs, plumping myself down on my bed, pulling the covers over my face. Suddenly, a knock on my bedroom door made me ground, rolling over to see my father, peeping in, smiling. How was it? How was the alpha? Asked my dad, raising his eyebrow excitedly. Yeah, it was fine. Look, Dad, there's something. It's a shame George didn't go. I think it would have been good for him to get out of the house at once, interrupted my dad, fumbling with his watch, distracted. Yeah, I guess he wasn't feeling up for it. You know, I spoke to him last night when we got back from the ceremony, but he didn't want to open up to me. I was wondering if you knew what was bugging him. I chewed on my bottom lip, fumbling with my fingers anxiously. I think it's better if he tells you that. I don't want to say unless he wants me to. My father nodded, pursuing his lips. I understand. Maybe you could try. Hold on, Dad. Hold on, my father mumbled, pulling his vibrating phone out of his pocket, glancing at the number, rolling his eye. Hello? I raised my brows at my father as he pulled the phone away from his ear, canceling the call. Stupid cold callers. They've been calling me non-stop, not saying a word. That's weird. Block them, I stated, my eyes widening. My dad swagged, shaking his head. I have. They keep calling me from different numbers. All I hear is breathing. I laughed, grinching. That's like something out of a horror movie. My dad nodded, smiling. Anyway, are you going to be validating here? Validating? For what? I asked, confused. Alpha Dylan sent out a message to let everyone know that the visiting Alpha will need an assistant for the week. So if anyone is interested to meet him at the ceremony hall as soon as possible. I didn't get a text, I murmured, double checking my phone, my brows flickering. Well, he said anyone, so I'm sure you're going to go along. It will be a good experience. Experience for what? I mumbled, glancing at Dad. You know, future interviews, speaking in front of a crowd, that kind of stuff. I rolled my eyes, shaking my head. Why would I want to be someone's assistant? Just consider it, Clara, urged my dad, as he quickly shut the door. I groaned, throwing the covers off myself in annoyance. Dylan was a grown man. Why did Alpha Paul insist on him having his own assistant? I didn't know how long this so-called assistant would be spending with Lillian, but it made me uncomfortable thinking about other women following him around and giving him anything he wanted at the click of a finger. I knew that there would be a lot of volunteers, especially women, but there was no way that I was going to show up at the hall begging to become Alpha Dylan's assistant for the week. I wasn't his slave. After another 20 minutes of contemplation, I growled to myself, shaking my head, pulling on some jeans in order to make myself look a little bit more presentable. I made my way down the stairs, taking two at a time. Dad, I'm going to the ceremonial hall. Be back soon, I called, shouting out the door, not wanting to be asked any questions or interrogated. I sprint down the path, my long wavy hair falling in front of my face, causing me to ground, messily pulling it into a bun. I took in a deep breath as I approached the ceremony hall, stopping before the large red doors as I braced my hands on my knees, composing myself. As quickly as I could, I pushed the door open, expecting a large crowd of women, Alpha Paul, exposing a large crowd of women, Alpha Paul and Dylan standing up on the stage in front, everyone turning at me, raising their eyebrow, Alpha Paul rolling his eyes as he gestured for me to make my way in. Oh good, another one, he mumbled to himself sarcastically. Dylan smirked at me, causing me to shake my head at him. Well, yes, as I was saying, the text was only sent out to men, but I guess the word got around, and as there are no men here to volunteer, one of you will be given the role. It's not what I had in mind when I offered Alpha Dylan an assistant, but he'll have to do. I would do anything that man asks me to, whispered a girl beside me to her friend, hawking my mate with dub-like eyes, her mouth set in a small smile. I clenched my fist, growling lowly at myself as the urge to punch the girl square in the nose overcame me. But I pushed it back, acknowledging that she didn't know that Dylan had a mate. I'm not really sure how to do this. I wasn't expecting this many people, mumbled Alpha Paul, scratching at the back of his neck. As assistant of the Alpha, you'll be expected to bring him his meals to him at the cabin, clean his sheets, and ensure he has everything he needs at all times. I'm not asking for much. I just don't want Alpha Dylan's time to be spent cleaning and running errands when he could be training our fighters. Every second counts. The crowd of females nodded, agreeing, causing me to roll my eyes. Dylan shook his head at me, chuckling to himself. I was bluffed. This many females had shown up to volunteer. However, I was one. I was only there to observe. I was not going to be offering myself up to wait hand and foot on someone, even if they were my mate. What experience? Asked Alpha Dylan, scanning the room as women raised their hands, smiling up at my mate furtively. My Alpha looked overwhelmed, pinching the bridge of his nose as he signed. Okay, why don't you come up here? He asked, pointing at a emburned hair girl at the front. Her face lit up and she rushed up the stairs, making her way over to my mate, shaking his hand, looking him up and down. My heart rate increased dramatically, and I swallowed, not enjoying the sight of another woman so close to my mate, practically drooling over him. What's your name? Asked Alpha Paul. Jen, she replied, her eyes loitering on Dylan's muscular chest, his thin white shirt hugging his body tightly. Dylan dropped his glance, looking uncomfortable, his eyes flickering over to mine as he flickered his brows. Well, Dylan, I hope you'll be happy with your assistant for this week, said Alpha Paul, his eyes giving Dylan a warning look. I am a pretty independent man, Paul. There really is no need. Alpha Paul held up his hand, stopping Dylan mid-sentence. I insist. It's the least we could do. We need these fighters trained as well as possible. Dylan nodded bitterly, sighing to himself as he raised his eyebrows to me, trying to gauge my reaction. If you need anything, Alpha Dylan, just ask. I'm a very dedicated girl, said Jen furtively. batting her long lashes. I rolled my eyes, scuffling to myself. Great. Just great. I murmured to myself.